If you could write one season of The Walking Dead, how would you do it, you think?
Great question. I would.
You're listening to Studio 22.
Welcome to Studio 22. My name is Will Meldman. I'm here with Brock O'Hearn. We come to you today from sunny Los Angeles, California. And today's episode is going to function a little bit differently. We are going to treat it a little bit more like a live stream, have a few discussions, various topics. And how do you feel about that, Brock?
I feel good. I think we're talking about some pretty cool stuff today. In particular, the one I'm most excited to hear you talk about more than anybody is The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, one of the most watched shows of all time. It's now in its 11th and final season with over 6 spin-off. Fear of the Walking Dead is in season 8 right now. We got Walking Dead: The World Beyond, 2 seasons. Tales of the Walking Dead debuted in August. Untitled Daryl series coming next year. Dead City coming in next year. And another untitled series coming next year. So, why did we want to talk about this? Well, not only is it one of the most watched shows of all time, and we'll run you through those numbers and kind of explain why that is and how that is and give it some context. But also, I recently binged it, a couple episodes a night here or there. Took forever. There's 11 seasons and 16 episodes every season, hour-long episodes. Do the math. It takes pretty long. Brock, when did you watch it?
I actually started watching it when it came out, when it was a fresh show. Nobody had seen it yet, which was 2010, right after I graduated. I remember watching it, and I didn't really know what it was about. You hear The Walking Dead. I don't think there was very many zombie films or shows out there at the time. Or maybe there hadn't been in a while. But I just remember it opening up, Rick laying on the ground. You got this policeman, basically, I'm pretty sure he was face down in the ground. It's been a while since I saw the first episode. Waking up, and it's like he didn't know who he was. And I'm sitting there in a world with cars are all over the place. It's empty, it's quiet, but it just looks like this dystopian society, and you don't know what's going on. But it was so moving and so cool to me because we were right there with him. He was just like us as viewers, not knowing what was happening or how he got there. And I'm still curious to this day how long he was in a coma, how long he was sitting there, right? Like thinking about that. And then him looking, what's the first thing you're going to do when you wake up? Try to find your family, try to find people you know and love, and find safety and security and shelter. And but absolutely, first thing you're going to do is try to find your family. And that's what's so cool about that.
Yeah, I love what you said about kind of that's who the audience is, right? Like you're following Rick's perspective, and you're looking for your family. The first season was only 6 episodes, but they're hour-long each. And I thought it set up the series perfectly to where it was really, really good writing in terms of you find your family. You're kind of, you're in a Atlanta camp, kind of in the forest, that you got to go back into the city. But when you do find your family, this is what good writers do. They escalate and like raise the stakes, right? Like even if you reach a goal, so you find your family, but yet your best friend is kind of now with your wife and like kind of this father figure to your son. And, then that's the whole new issue that you have to face. And like, the first season opened to about, I believe it was like an average of 5 to 6 million per episode. They, strong ratings. But I still think like the simplicity of that as well. They didn't try to overcomplicate it. You meet some interesting characters like Daryl and his brother on the rooftop. And, it set everything up perfectly. I think the writers did a great job of like not writing themselves into a corner and really kind of everything's possible. Like it's just about a guy trying to find his family. And when he does, like more problems come up after that. And it was just very, very simple bread and butter, interesting characters, interesting world. It was a kind of new take on zombies in terms of like they established the rules, like they walk, right? The Walking Dead, like it's not like World War Z zombies. Like, you know, you establish the rules of the world and you kind of take it from there. But I think we're not at season 2 yet, but basically I think what season 1 did really, really well was establish the world and establish interesting characters.
Absolutely. And it's really takes a good look at people. Yes, you have this extraordinary circumstance. This world is completely different than anything that we know, but also people trying to survive and figure things out. And, you know, if your husband's not there, it's and the best friend is, and there's some kind of security there in this scary world, it makes sense that, you know, that would be the case that would happen. But how they deal with it on top of the extra looming factor of there's these Walking Dead, these people, zombies walking around that could kill you as an extra layer of, oh, your world might be torn up. But if you get, that's what I think is so fascinating. You can get torn up in your own real world. And if you get too caught up in it and you don't remember or pay attention to your outside circumstances, that will also kill you. So it's just, I think it was very well done. And this a major reason as to why it's had so much success. And it's a very well done show.
That's the other thing too. Like you said, these characters are human, right? Like, I don't think anyone kind of like blames the mother for like befriending the best friend when she thinks her husband is gone and it's the end of the world. I mean, you can argue that, but of course, that's what good writing does, is like these moral questions of like, what would you do in that scenario? You know, who would you side with? But also what happens when he comes back? And I think they kind of handle that and set that up really good. And then another thing that this show did, so every zombie show or film or whatever, it's always like the race for the cure, right? And in The Walking Dead, outside of the end of season 1 where they go to the CDC in Atlanta, it really didn't focus much on the hunt for the cure. And obviously we're getting into spoilers here, but you know, this show's been out for 12 years, so hopefully you've either watched it or you haven't by now. But we also won't ruin anything from season 11. If you haven't started season 11 yet, don't worry. We're just gonna really cover 1 through 10. However, you know, they basically just said, you know, there's no cure. We tried. We went to the CDC. And they never really address it again. And they're not really even like looking for a cure. And I think that survival aspect of the show is also what makes it so appealing. What do you do to survive?
And that's, something that's innately built into all of us. We all every day figure out how to survive, even if we're doing it on a high level or if it's, you know, life and death. We have to drink water, eat food. We have to have shelter. You know, there's got to be community. There's got to be, you know, so many different factors that come into our day to day, but this is a very heightened version of it, right? And supplies might run thin, and people might turn on you. The world is not as they saw it; it's completely flipped, and anything kind of goes in a way. So they do a good job, I think, also at bringing some structure back into it, and you see that with the good guys and the bad guys, right? And who really sticks to it. They kind of both have structure in a way. It didn't feel fully chaotic at all times, but it was the two different points of view, and both of them believe they're right, and they both fight for that right to stay alive and to survive and to hopefully get to some kind of whatever their new normal is, you know?
Totally. And that moral ambiguity of the only difference of the good guys and the bad guys kind of throughout all 10 seasons are who fights, you know, to protect others and who fights for their own individual survival, right? It's like once we stop caring about one another, then that's what makes us human, right? So like the good characters fight for each other. They risk their lives for others. And they're not just fighting for themselves, because that's when society crumbles, is when we're all just looking out for ourselves. And I really enjoy kind of that theme of the show as well. What's the point of society if we're not looking out for each other?
Absolutely. We're all in it together one way or another.
Totally. So basically, into season 1, there's no cure. And then season 2 starts up. And honestly, like, man, this was definitely my least favorite season. Actually, yeah, probably still is. Even though I might like it better than some of the newer ones, but I haven't really thought about that yet. But it's all pretty much at Herschel's farm. They do a few missions kind of into town and whatever. But I think the beauty of the show is that they're kind of nomadic and traveling. And you have to have like a home base. I get that. And that's a big theme kind of in later episodes too, like establishing a home and, trying to make a home and a community. But it really was just, I don't think I don't think it was a strong season at all.
Is that why it's not one of your favorites?
Yeah. It just kind of seemed like, are the people that own the farm good or bad? How do they mix well with the main people? And then there's kind of like not that big of a payoff at the end. Although I do think what kept people interested in this show, because the view count steadily rose for the first 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Growing by millions per episode all the way up to season 5, hitting their prime in season 5 with the premiere episode at 17.3 million viewers for the season 5 premiere. But yeah, I mean, I think the characters are what kept people engaged in the show. Daryl was kind of coming out of his shell. He's a mysterious loner, but now he's, starting to act more for the group and more for others. And, Carol is looking for her daughter. Obviously, I thought that was pretty crazy and tragic, the way they handled that at the end.
How did they handle it?
So Herschel is hiding people. He's hiding walkers in the barn, and Glenn and Maggie Glenn finds out, but he's like dating Maggie. So they agree to like protect it. But then everyone kind of finds out. And in the finale, the daughter this is why, because the entire season, they're looking for the daughter, the entire season.
Yeah.
So it's like, You got to resolve that plot point. Like even if they're on the farm the whole time, they need a new mission. Like that can last a few episodes, but the entire season was looking for this character. And she ended up literally being in the barn the entire time as a walker. And that's a tragic reveal. But if they did that halfway through and kind of moved on from the farm after that, I think that would have been a lot better. Matt, that wasn't the finale. The finale was with John Bernthal's character and Rick, actually.
In season 2?
Yeah, because when John Bernthal and Rick's character finally, said enough is enough and end up butting heads, that's what attracts the walkers to the farm.
Yep.
And then they all have to flee the farm. So yeah, I misspoke. But it was definitely towards the end of the season, and that plot point kind of dragged on for a long time. But
I like the idea of that because if you think about a real world scenario, when there's high stakes, there's high anxiety, high stress, people react probably a little bit different, because we all react to it differently in a way than we would in a normal scenario. And even then, it can be difficult living with people and integrating different lifestyles together and different personalities and all that. So having these people that, eventually just to the point they know they're in trouble, but they get a little too comfortable around these walkers and the impending doom outside of it, that they, stir up some chaos within their own ecosystem, and then it causes the bigger issue to affect them at a full rate. It comes into these walkers come to the farm and makes them evacuate. It's like, if you just shut up and sucked it up or talked it out or something, it wouldn't have happened, but that's us as people, and we all have our stuff. So I find that pretty fat. I find it pretty fascinating. But that's one thing I did love about the show is there is a beautiful simplicity to it, you know, and they did such a great job. And I think that's why there wasn't anything on TV like it at the time. There hadn't been anything like that before. And it was such a unique, cool idea. Everyone knows zombies, you know, but they've never really seen it in a world like that, I don't think. And I think that might be a testament to the constant rise in viewership as well, because the show was a smashing success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, it really is a result of, you know, secrets leading to conflict. And if they hadn't just keep things bottled up, then they would have been able to communicate about it 100%. And that's ultimately why Rick and John Bernthal's character, Shane, I think, end up fighting too. But yeah, so
Shane.
Season 2 ends after they all leave the farm and they head to the prison.
Yeah.
And I loved the kind of whole prison arc all the way up. Well, we won't get there because I think it extends to season 4, the end of season 4. This is the first time that they're able to really establish a very safe base, you know, with the concrete walls of a prison and the outer gates. And this is when they also meet their first real human villain of the show, the governor. And he has his own little colony where he's kind of lying to everybody, pretending everything's good and effing like crazy behind closed doors. But like, he's like kind of like a politician, right? He's like, he reminded me of like Cartman from South Park, where he's like, pretends to be this like innocent, nice person in front of people. But then when you actually see what he's doing in private, it's like super effed up. But yeah, like this is where I really got into the show. And like, you know, the death of Rick's wife, I believe was in season 3. It could have been 4. I hope I didn't jump ahead, but yeah, no, it was season 3. This is where I really like was emotionally invested in the show. Like when Rick comes back and realizes that, you know, his son had to end it and she was turned. But they got baby Judith out in time, and he holds the baby and he like comes back. I mean, I'm not a crier. I don't cry during like TV shows and movies typically, but
just watching sports, right?
To quote, yeah, exactly. To quote Starsky and Hutch, I don't cry, I work out.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about that moment with him is the son, you know, Carl. It showed how much he had to grow up and how hard it was for him in this one moment with his mother, the C-section, like all that stuff. And it really developed a child. And he took a turn, I felt, after that in the coming seasons of like, I can handle more than you think I can. I'm more capable of things than you guys are allowing me to do. You know, like you might see me like as the kid.
Yeah, that was a big moment for Carl for sure.
It was a very big character turning point, I felt, and it was incredible to watch and fascinating, you know, and he did such a great job of playing that character as well.
Totally. And like that's another thing they kind of do with all children in the show is they're forced to grow up quickly. It's adapt and survive, and there's no time for childhood in a typical sense. You know, you got to figure out how to use weapons, you got to figure out how to provide and help others, and you got to grow up quick. And I like that for sure. And you really see that with Judith in later seasons, but we're not there yet. But yeah, crazy emotional moment when Rick returns. It's one of my favorite moments in the show, you know, where it's incredible joy of holding your new baby and incredible depression, realizing what happened to Lori. But yeah, like this is when the show's at its best. They find a good base. They got it. They protect it. They start growing agriculture. Like they're really in like really good survival elements. But then the conflict is with another colony with this crazy evil leader. in the governor, and they gotta, protect against them and kind of follow that plot thread.
One, I love the idea of the prison because the irony that this is meant to keep people in
Right.
is now their safe haven, and keeping the walkers out. I loved that. And it's such a brilliant way to move the story forward as far as them finding security and safety. And it's an illusion, right? It's always an illusion. You're never fully safe, I don't think, in that situation. So we came to find. But also the governor was somebody who irked me, dude. Like I was like, if I was in this world, this guy would get socked so quick and he would be dethroned from his whole entire status. And it was just like when you could really see through people's character. And again, it's these high stakes. People are scared. They're nervous. Not everyone's a leader, right? So someone's stepping into that space and really taking over, but for his own gain. And you see it really like they did such a good job at making you not like the guy.
100%. I'm with you. I think it's probably my favorite villain, but he literally, he has his own arc as well, which makes it even better writing and so good too. Like he goes from, I'm going to keep up this facade of like my people like me and trust me as a leader, until once he kind of loses a battle to Rick, he offs like 20 of his own people in front of his own people. And there's only like 3 soldiers after that who are looking at him like, what the F did you just do?
Yeah.
And we see his descent into like trying to manage things properly to like, nope, I'm just full blown villain now. And the best villains aren't one dimensional. They have arcs too, and they have reasons for why they do things. And
that's one thing that I think is so great about the villains, quote unquote, in The Walking Dead is just like you said, you nailed it. They have character arcs, they have story arcs, and you care to, you get involved. You're emotionally attached because guess what? You have the good guys and you have the bad guys. Just like any great story. Even in wrestling, in sports, and what your degree of what you care about, it makes you care is what I'm trying to say. But then you do have essentially your one-dimensional villain, which is the walkers. So you have both elements of that, and you're getting it at the same time, maybe without even realizing it. It's like, and then to have the good and the bad at some points using that one-dimensional element, quote unquote, the walkers, against each other or for each other's benefit in whichever ways, as they're discovering how deadly are these things, how fast can they get us, like how are they getting in? Because there's so many moments in The Walking Dead that, everything's calm and all of a sudden these walkers came out of nowhere and there's like 500 of them in the bottom of this building and you're like, holy crap, get me out of here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They always find a way in. They always find a way. Crafty little devils. I don't think they're as one-dimensional as we think.
They are, man. And like the one thing that they didn't really do in the show, they don't really care about the cure. That was really just a season 1 finale. And then they don't show, the virus itself, like adapting to, have maybe there's zombies that can climb or zombies that can run or you know what I mean? Or a different like shape, a different type. So like they really don't get into that. And that's like a very typical zombie trope that like I was kind of hoping for, like coming up as I was watching season 1 through 10, the main things they focus on, like ammo doesn't seem to be a concern. Like there's an entire plot thread about like food. And then once they finally get it, it's like solved with another thing. I'll bring that up when we get to that season, but it's like, okay, so that entire subplot this season was for nothing because, that happened. But I guess we can move on to season 4 now. My highlight was the governor attacking the prison at the end of season 3. That was so good. In the tanks, like blowing up the scout towers. And by the way, think of like if Rick made the decision to try to guard it, everyone in those towers would be dead. They duped the governor by leading him down to the bowels of the prison and having the walkers do the work, which ended up totally being the right move.
Yeah.
But Yeah, man, that was a badass scene.
On that point, that's one thing that I wanted to say about Walking Dead that I found so awesome was their ability to come up with unique kills. That whether it's the tank, I don't want to give away any just yet, but there were so many that weren't repeat kills. You're like, oh, that was a way of blowing someone up I never really thought of, or that's exactly what I would have done, or how the heck did you miss that? Like so many of these moments that either push the story forward or that were just great action in the moment. I think they did a very good job at executing that.
For sure.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, they off so many different walkers. Like it'd be quite the task for the writing staff to like really keep it interesting.
Yeah, so let's go back to season 4.
Season 4.
Tell me about the lore in season 4.
The lore in 4. This is basically where they're forced to leave the prison after the attack. Everyone gets separated, and they're on the hunt for Terminus, a false safe haven. But there's all the signs like come to Terminus, and I really enjoyed this season. Everyone's separated. They're trying to get to, they all kind of realize separately, like, I bet everyone's headed there because there's signs everywhere for it. They think it's safe, and it's a big terminal station. And yeah, it's like each character has their own journey. They're all separated for the first time, really. And there's an episode, I believe it's Carol and I forget his name, but they're with the 2 girls, right? And one of the girls just is really suffering from a mental illness and like really not holding it together. And like she thinks the walkers are her friends, and unfortunately her sister doesn't make it because I don't even want to like describe what happens, but it's really, really terrible. But it kind of highlights like how people can lose hold of reality in times of crazy traumatic stress, which is completely understandable and like really tragic, man, and brutal and gnarly. But that was another kind of emotional peak where I was like, dude, this show isn't effing around. And then again at the finale of season 4, when they basically all end up imprisoned at Terminus and we find out they're cannibals, they're like killing people like in an industrial style fashion. Really, really brutal and gruesome. But yeah, man, what'd you think of 4?
I liked 4. I think it had some very good, exciting moments in it, as well as like, how did you feel when the governor killed his old right-hand man, Martinez? Because I really liked Martinez, dude.
Oh yeah. And you kind of think the governor, they're trying to convince you that he's like turned a new leaf and like accepted his defeat, and like that was brutal, man. I think they just fully committed to having him be evil, and yeah, that was definitely a brutal.
Yeah, because I think even watching that, like exactly what you're saying, the governor, there were moments where he truly seemed like he was fighting to be good. And was it in, I can't remember if it was in that season, maybe we'll cut this, but like, was it in the season where he went to the house and, he stole the gun, but he handed over the gun? And
yeah, where he kind of like the daughter and the woman.
He came into a home that had, a female who was in the military, weapons. She's very good with weapons. And then they had a weapon, and then he brought a weapon in, but he submitted it. And then you think he is submitting and being good in that moment because it was like his major defeat. He was at his lowest point, it seemed like, in the story. Only, to get to the point where he was like pushing the food out the window and had a bigger plan because maybe he'd given up and he didn't want to eat anymore. I can't remember exactly why he was doing that, but it played to the plot of him taking back the house and taking over, being a leader again, and an evil leader, and getting the gun again, and always kind of having one up on everyone around him until he stepped back into that role again. But yeah, dark dude, man. There was hope, but he crushed it.
Yeah.
And
I think they did a great job with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause it's like he is doing some good deeds, right?
yeah,
But you're sitting there yelling at the screen, like, don't trust him. He's bad.
yeah,
He's not
exactly.
good. And that's like what you
Exactly.
should be doing. But yeah, you know, he ultimately is ended by Rick in the big final battle. Right? Or does he
Was that
escape?
4?
It's so confusing to me because I know he attacks, but then he goes away and survives, but then he attacks again. He captures Herschel.
Yep. No. Oh, so yeah, that's when Rick is forced, and the Rick's group is forced to separate, right?
Yeah.
And then Herschel and the governor get left behind, but they're killed.
Right.
Yeah, when getting left behind. So
They kind of, yeah, they rebuild after the first attack, but stay
Yep.
there.
And then everyone who survived had to face against the walkers and kind of press on.
For sure.
But Herschel too, that was a tough one, man. He's a good. I loved him.
I'm surprised he made it that long,
Yeah.
honestly. But you're right.
Why
but
do
you're
you
right.
think? Because of his age, or
He had the limp.
Yeah.
He was kind of made out to be a villain, or he was definitely made out to be a villain, like lying to them about the walkers and the farm. But then, you know, that's the beauty of the show is you can forgive people and they can be redeemed. I mean, you know, a lot of people do crazy bad stuff in the show. Look at Carol. She killed like 2 main characters, semi-main characters, and like was redeemed. Rick kind of banished her and said, you know, that was bad and you can't live with us anymore. And then now she came back and rescued him from Terminus by, you know, blowing up the propane tank and saving everybody, really.
that's something about Rick and his group in general, and them being good. There's points of demise and just chaos and everything that they get pushed to the utter brink of their, you know, what they can handle. And so you see so many human moments of like, screw it, I'm going to take down the world with me. You know, like I'm going to leave it all on the table. I'm going to do something that isn't in my moral compass, or at least what you didn't believe. And then it's the community and the people that usually bring them back around and make them good again and say, it's not worth it, don't do it. So even someone who does something as evil as, you know, Carol killing people and killing 2 people or doing all these different things, it's like, well, at the end of the day, we're not murderers. You know, we're not here to kill people. We're here to keep people safe and to grow back and to hopefully have a normal community. And if at the end of the day, technically, if they kill someone, there's a chance that there's going to be another walker that they're going to have to go up against at some point. So it's that like, you know, we don't trust you. And there's so many chances of this to go wrong. But at the end of the day, we need more people so that humanity can survive. But you have to get the heck away from us. And so sometimes that comes back to bite them multiple times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, you know, as we talk about season 4, let's bring up some numbers on season 4, shall we?
El numero.
So the premiere episode of 4, 16 million viewers
Wow.
for that. And then the finale, 15.6. So the average for season 4 was 15.68 million viewers per episode, which is insane. That's like,
Yeah.
and what I love about that too is like, people talk about the audience and like what they care about and all this. The numbers for this show, I think, directly reflect when the writing was good and when the writing was bad. And the first few seasons, they gained about 3 million viewers per episode. They went from 5 to 9 to 12.5 from season 1, 2, 3. And, you know, by 4, they gained another 3 million and got to 15.68. So the show was getting better and better. The stakes were getting higher. There were new great villains, and like it made sense. Like, yeah, there were great characters, and the show was growing. And then season 6 was the first one to fall off. Season 5 ended with them at Alexandria, right? They found a new home. Rick's basically kind of now in charge. You have an enemy group called the Wolves. By the way, what happened to the Wolves? Like, I feel like that was an enemy that just kind of came and went without like, it wasn't much anyway.
Yeah, I don't really remember the wolves now that you mention it.
Right. Like they were just kind of like a subset, random, small plot line. But then Rick is kind of now in charge, and now they have a new home with great walls. I found it to be like really unbelievable that this entire community lived there and like no one really went outside, right? Like their whole description was like, yeah, life is normal here. And they have like certain people that are scouts and like go on food runs and scavenge outside the walls. But like the vast majority of people in this one small little neighborhood just stayed inside the walls the entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just kind of didn't really seem that believable.
Yeah, I think maybe they're trying something different, right? And then trying to get more towards a sense of normalcy. And so they make a community where you feel a false sense of security and kind of give the people the opportunity to be, instead of, survival mode, maybe they get a little bit of life back, But no matter what, I don't know, because the circumstances outside of those walls haven't changed, right? So what is it doing? Hard times create hard men, right? Well, now they're making people more comfortable in the space. They're going to become more soft. Now they're more vulnerable to the outside world that hasn't changed.
And I did like that aspect, right? Like our group being the main characters are basically have been surviving in this crazy, harsh world the entire time, barely. And they meet a group that, has walls and is protected. I didn't think they had to like make it that harsh of a difference to still get the intended effect of like the contrast between the two groups, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, two completely different ways of surviving, right?
Right.
One's a more controlled, but yeah, a little more risky, I feel, in given the circumstances of where the world is at, where the zombies are at, versus Rick's group, who's constantly being hardened and going through crazy hardships and battling crazy people. Like, I don't remember who their main nemesises were in season 6, with that group and the people that lived in Alexandria. But then you got Negan, right?
Yeah. So season 6 ends with the introduction of Negan.
Pissing our pants yet?
The Saviors are a threat throughout the season. They take out an outpost, and even taking out that outpost seems to have no effect on the enemy, which it doesn't. But yeah, they meet Negan at the very end, and we basically are in this really long stretch of like kind of the Negan era. And to me, this is where it fell off. And whether you like Negan or not, like I think that guy's a good actor. And
definitely.
Yeah, he's a good actor. Like I even liked the character, but he has too many of these kind of random monologues and just seems like it doesn't fit as much. I feel like they could have done his character a lot better, but this really, really split the fans, and it showed in the numbers. A lot of people stopped watching. And then as we get into season 7, it starts off with him, offing two main characters. And, man, it makes Rick look like a horrible leader, like over and over again. Like he can't win. He keeps leading them into traps. Like he's subdued. Like, by the way, I kept thinking like all you guys have to do is leave. The only reason you're putting up with this enemy is because you choose to live in these houses at Alexandria. Like, all you have to do is go find a new home. That's it.
Yeah.
You're like, there's other places in the entire country you can live and be away from this guy, yet you choose to stay here under his rule. It's like, how does that make any sense? You're used to moving around. Like you're used to finding, and I get it. They have a baby. They don't want to be on the move forever, but like be on the move for a little bit at least a little bit to like get away from this crazy a-hole.
And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like they were trying to stay so that they can have a little bit of that normalcy, right? They're trying to have a little bit back. Like they're starting to remember what it felt like to be how it was before. And I think that maybe that messes with your head a little bit. But I agree with you in the sense of it falling off, because I became personally less interested in the show because exactly what you're saying, how they could have gone anywhere and done anything, but the show stayed after how many years is that now? I mean, 5, 6 years at this point. They're staying in the same place, the same location, and never leaving. And it's like, you got to continue the one, you have to expand it, I felt, but you have to continue the story. And right now you're making the story stagnant and trying to force it, it felt like, to work in those same parameters, but with just a slightly different element. And it wasn't as exciting. You're like, okay, I've seen this. Okay, I've seen how the walkers react. I've seen the same location. Like, give me a little something, you know?
So we're just going to talk about 6, 7, and 8, right? Because they're in Alexandria the entire time, and Negan is the bad guy the entire time, right? So
Yes.
6, 7, 8, we had a dramatic fall in the ratings. Season 7, you had 11 million, down from 14 million. 8, you had 7.9 million. And 9, you had 5 million. And 10, you had 2 million. So we're just literally, it was a rapid decline. Or not, it's a gradual decline. We'll give it that. But like, they're in the same place, same bad guy. And by the way, it was a huge opportunity to expand their world. And they did, in the sense that they added new communities. They added Hilltop, Oceanside, the Kingdom. I loved Ezekiel. I think he's great. Different people, different communities. And like, Jesus was the introduction into that. There's like cool new character. And he tells Rick, like, I'm about to expand your world big time. And they did, but like, over 3 seasons, it really dragged on. It felt stagnant. Felt like they weren't adding anything new to the show. Rick keeps getting destroyed by Negan. Like, every plan he has backfires. Everything they try. And it's like, that's your protagonist. And he's not. What I think they should have done is Negan should have been the bad guy for 1 or 2 seasons, fine. But Rick has to like slowly chip away at him. Have him take out an outpost, and then maybe Negan can't get, he doesn't have access to his farm anymore, so their food supply gets lower, right? Like, you slowly chip away until you defeat the enemy. And the way they defeat the enemy has nothing. It was Eugene basically making the fake bullets, right? So they didn't let Rick end him, even though they beat him, which, by the way, I'm fine with. I'm fine with the thing of like, even though Negan had to go, he probably should have been gone. But he cuts his throat and doesn't die. He literally cut his throat. I'm like, yeah, I'm like cheering, like, he got Negan, like, let's go. And he's like, tend to his wound. He'll be in prison. I'm like, what are you talking about, tend to his wound? You just offed him. Like, how does that make any sense? And then they were setting up the guy that Daryl rescued in the woods is like Negan's right-hand man. And I thought he was going to play a part in taking Negan down, yet they didn't pay that off. Like, Daryl could have, and he was the one taking care of Daryl when he was imprisoned. They had a huge plot device there for Negan's downfall, and they didn't use it. And then they basically have Rick kill him, but he doesn't die. So then he's imprisoned. And I'm fine with the message of like, if we're going to have a new world that we're creating, there needs to be justice and prison and not just death. I'm fine with that message, but don't have him slit his throat then. Yeah.
But also after, in season 7, which I think this was a point, it was a major talking point. So it obviously gave huge press and eyeballs on the show itself. But when Negan brutally murders Glenn, and Abraham, but Glenn specifically, I felt was such a fan favorite. People loved him, loved his relationship, and seeing him go out just sucked when it should have been Negan.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean,
It felt like it was too soon.
if you're going to do character death like that, then Negan's has to die.
Yeah.
He has to. Like, you can't take out two beloved characters and have the guy live in a show that's all about death. And I think they just were like, well, we want to keep Negan on. He's a good actor. That, you know, people like the character. So what, dude? He offed two main characters. Like, Glenn was a season 1 OG. Like, and you expect Maggie to get along and work with him now? Like, come on, dude. Like, what is that? And I get, it's like they got too into the redemption plot arcs that they gave one a redemption plot arc that was irredeemable, right? Like, you can't do that.
Yeah. I can't see there being any way to come back from that. And somehow they kept it going, right?
It just felt weird. Like, you're going to have Maggie and like Maggie's son, like around him.
And I don't know the comic books, but was it something that, you know, you think they did fan like case studies and is something where people just really resonated and loved Negan for some reason? Like the reason they kept his plot line and story going so strong, and obviously if you've been following, you know, Walking Dead over all the years, you know where it's at now. But do you think it's something that, like, there was such a majority of people that enjoyed it, but from the people I've talked to, I don't feel that way.
Oh, yeah, you could be right. It could be a comic thing. I don't own any of the comics, although I'm definitely going to buy some from Golden Apple Comics, located on Melrose here in LA.
Shout out to Ryan.
Shout out to Ryan. But you could be right. All I know is it divided the fans, and I know why. And you see a steady decline in ratings because of that. And it was just a very strange choice. And it, you know, they kept doing that plot thread, like bad guy with a new bad community. Like, you know, there's unlimited possibilities you can do in an apocalyptic zombie show. Like, especially
one that you're constantly introducing new characters and
new, yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah.
And that's kind of like the beauty of the show, but also the downfall. It's simplicity. You know, it worked so great in the first, 4 or 5 seasons. And then after that, it became monotonous. It became the same. It didn't feel exciting because you're like, okay, yeah, the walkers are going to walk up to you and come get you now. Or it's like
a new bad guy with another community.
Yeah, which I understand. And I'm not even against that. It was more the moments for me that kind of threw me off. It was like, you guys have been doing this for 7 years now, and that walker came out of nowhere and just walked up to you and bit you in the neck, like, or you just got ambushed out of this thing. It wasn't these like major inciting events. It was just like, that wouldn't happen. Or like you shoot at someone 27 times and you miss, but when it counts a different time, it's a ricochet. I mean, that didn't even happen, but like a ricochet off something, and it was like a perfect shot. And you're like, it's not, you have to keep the realism enough. And I think that was lost in translation a few times. And so it was like, if the fans aren't going to believe it, at least to the point where you established it from the beginning, then it's kind of like, that sucks. It's like a military guy, say a Navy SEAL, watching an actor portray a Navy SEAL. And if he doesn't do what the Navy SEAL does to a T, they get taken out of it. We get taken out of it when it's not real. And it's like, okay, no one holds a gun like that. No one does this like that. No one, like, he would be able to do X, Y, Z or assess the situation in a certain way. And so when you take people out of the show, which can be very hard to keep people in, but if you do it right, it's more engaging. And so I think that's one factor that led to a little less engagement in the show. But also, I think all the other streaming platforms, where the world was at, society, how much content was out there, are also maybe a little bit of a factor as well.
And that's 3 full seasons. of Negan
Yes.
on top, always outsmarting Rick, like 3 full seasons, dude. It was just really tough to watch. It's like you can't make your main character look dumb for 3 straight seasons.
It didn't.
Like,
It didn't feel like it was in Rick's character to submit. You know,
I completely agree with you. Like, I completely agree with you. It wasn't his character. He would have either fought back or left. He wouldn't have sat there and done that.
Yeah.
Not at all. I totally agree with you. And all right, well, you know, clearly everyone out there felt similarly, and please comment below how you feel about 6 through 8 and Negan's introduction and downfall. Did you think Eugene taking him out was the right way to do it? Should that have been part of it and then had a few more other things? Let us know in the comments. Because I actually am really interested in hearing what you think of Negan, because I know it definitely divided the fans. Season 9, I actually really enjoyed the beginning of season 9, where they come across that giant horde in the valley or in the quarry, I believe. But there's literally like 10,000 undead in this huge area. But they all keep like falling down the hillside, so they can't get out. They're stuck in there. And the whole big thing is like Rick runs an operation to get the herd out of there and migrating somewhere else, because they know if the hillside's eroding, and when the truck falls, the zombies will get out and they'll come right for Alexandria. So I love how it's like this big coordinated effort to get the herd out. And you literally I just love that. It's like ingenuity. It's good writing. It's the big herd right here. We got to get them out. And that's where, sorry.
No, I was okay. Exactly to your point. Much higher stakes than the previous seasons.
Yeah. It's a creative, super high stakes situation that's unique and like, okay, yeah, they got to deal with that.
Yeah. And that's something they hadn't seen before. It was, maybe a few hundred at the most in the seasons before, but usually it was a few interactions or one-on-one a lot. But that was something where it's like, oh, okay, that's going to change our perspective, and our real world problems right now are just going to have to wait. If we don't figure this out, we're all going to die.
Yep. So I really enjoyed that at the beginning of season 9, but then of course, they're building a bridge because Rick wants to trade easier and between communities. And ultimately during the operation, Rick gets stranded, falls directly onto, one of those giant metal pole things. Rhubarb, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. Is that, yeah. I don't know.
It's like a construction metal. It's like a rod.
Oh, rebars?
Rebar?
Yeah.
Rhubarb's pie.
I was going to say rhubarb was not a metal stay, but that's funny.
Rhubarb pie.
Yeah, they're like you put them like in steel and concrete.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then he gets back on his horse, barely survives, shoots the bridge to protect the horde from reading Alexandria, saves everybody, but almost dies himself, and then is taken away on a helicopter. So, season 9, there's a group attacked in a cemetery, and one of the walkers is about to die, but then it dodges an attack from one of the main characters and ends up killing the character. And I thought that it was an incredible moment because it shocked everyone. It's like the walkers can't move like that. What is that? And it ends up being a Whisper, who, the group that wears the zombie mask and can move with the herd. And I'm like, I thought they were going to do like a variant of the virus, and it was a new type of walker that are super, super rare, but, can like have a little more mental ability there and can do things and attack better. And I was so excited for that. And then I felt like the movie The Village by M. Night Shyamalan, where it's like the bad guys are just people in mass. I'm like, come on, dude, you really gonna do that? And then we just end up with another bad guy and another group of people, and it's the same exact plot with like chief bad guy. And although the one new thing about them was they could, you know, walk with the dead and control them and lead them, which I think should have been done by, you know, like a new type of virus or the virus adapting and being able to do that. Because like back in season 5 or 6 is when I think they should have implemented that, right? And like if you can lead the dead and walk with the dead, they should have figured that out earlier in the show, I think, because it's like they would have thought of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a uniqueness to it where people react differently in different situations. Like, you know, we can both try to assess a situation and try to problem solve it, but your idea will be different and maybe even the right idea than mine, right? So
yeah.
And different skill sets and everything too. So it makes sense that a different group of people did it, maybe not introduced in ours, or we hadn't been introduced to you. Who know how long have they been doing it? Was that established?
Well, like since it happened, I just thought it was so cheap to like take away that character death from like a person in a mask instead of like an actually evolved walker.
Yeah.
You're totally right. Like people handle things differently and survive in different ways. Like for sure. I just didn't.
That's one thing that I also want to say is that I envy about you is that you got to watch from start to finish. You got to binge The Walking Dead. And so you have a great scope of the story that I think a lot of people don't, who did start it originally the same time that I did. And we had to wait each year for it to come out and weekly sometimes and the whole deal. So for you to say that, it makes a lot of sense as well, because you got to watch the actual arc of the entire everything.
It gives me a ton of clarity to know basically what happens in order, right? And the crazy part is I binged it all without knowing that the final season is taking place right now. So now I'm like with everyone else, right? Watching it as it comes out, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I had no idea it was even coming out, and I looked it up and I'm like, oh shit, fuck yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
So season 10, this is a big season, right? Negan's beginning to try to make up for what he's done. There's a huge time jump. I believe it's 6 years because Rick's daughter, Judith, is, you know, like a 6 years old or 8 years old. She's like a kid now, not a baby. And Negan infiltrates the Whisperers and kills Alpha, which I thought was good. Like, you know, this guy shouldn't be alive right now, one, but if he is, he should be trying to make up for what he did. And that was a big way to make up for that. But then the other big guy in the Whispers, the big country singer guy, takes over, and then Daryl has to help out. But this is basically setting up everything else. Like Eugene is talking to someone on the radio. Michonne is looking for Rick, and everyone's kind of doing their thing. It's kind of setting everything up. But it's like, look, killing Alpha should have ended the Whispers, period. Like Negan that should have been it. But then the other guy takes over and like they still exist. But that was a pretty cool scene when they take over Alexandria and there's like an army of walkers in Alexandria and they're like hiding and got to take off. It's pretty cool. I did like that part. But you can tell, right? Like everything's pretty decentralized now in season 10. And the threats are spread out and everyone's not together anymore. There's a big time jump and it's kind of just like, okay, we're just hanging on here, you know. There was no kind of sense of connection between everyone. You still have like the major characters, but it's like there's so many of them alive still. You're like, this just doesn't even seem.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where obviously whoever created it and the story itself has such a massive IP now that no matter what, it's going to be valuable. And telling that last season, it's either, or not, I guess not last season, but season 10, that is what shows aspire and dream of getting to is syndication and getting to at 100 episodes plus and getting to season 10. That rarely ever happens.
For sure.
And I think it's very interesting. The way you approach it, because obviously, they've got 6 spinoffs now. There's a season 11 as well. Instead of doing the big final sin, let's give the fans, let's give the world, everyone what they want. Like Ray Donovan, right, coming in with a movie after and closing off the story really, or finishing off and giving the story, giving more to that, adding more value. Instead, it sounds like we're just going to keep riding this train and keep it going. And I'm curious because I haven't been watching season 11 just yet. And I'm curious to hear what happens in it and where they take that. And is that the final season? Is this the one that they're going to give?
It is, yeah. They've announced that, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But now
they have 6 spinoffs.
That's my point. Yeah, is that it's not technically the end of the end. There's so much more they have to offer, and it's interesting because if they did something so simple, like you said, adding the variant with a more higher stakes zombie, even if it's a rare one, that is exciting. I want to watch that.
Yeah, but that was just one example, but obviously like different locations, man. Like maybe there's a small group of people that hears about a CDC building in northern Canada and they need to go in the snow and trek through mountains, and maybe there's no dead up there, but they have to survive in that weather. And then there's like a small colony up there that they find with, walkers that have kind of died a while back. So there are walkers there. Any different type of thing, like location. Basically, the only issues that they deal with are other bad people and then walkers, obviously. The Reapers in like season 8, badass enemy. They're military trained. They're run by this like ruthless, evil guy. And I love how they put Daryl in this with like the priest and Aaron. Like it's a really good arc and their most badass villain. It's like the shortest enemy arc out of all of them. I think it's handled in like maybe 7 episodes, and they take care of them pretty quickly. But the entire mission is to get food from their base and bring it back to Alexandria. They get the food, they bring it back, and what happens? Eugene shows up with people from the Commonwealth saying, don't worry about food, they'll give you unlimited food. So there was a problem for food that Daryl and them basically almost died for, and they come back with it, and now they don't even need it. I'm like, you're telling me that entire mission is now pointless. All you had to do was wait there, and you would have been totally fine. Like, that's really bad writing.
That's tough because if you're in this situation, though, how would you know?
You don't, but the writers do.
Yeah, it's true. I think there's definitely creative ways to progress the story forward. Definitely, that would make more sense than that. But it's tough,
You literally just made this entire food issue a non-issue. Like, have it be, they could have pulled it off in a million other ways where they actually still needed it, and they would have all died without it. But that's just one grievance. I'll calm down.
Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so we're pretty much caught up to where we are now. We mentioned the Commonwealth. They wear that really silly armor. They look like they're paintballing. They have like a military security group, and they all wear like white plastic armor. It looks so dumb. Like, and they introduce a big society where, like Alexandria, have no idea what it's like in the outside world, which, like, again, is so unbelievable. And they make it like they bring in like real world problems and like a politician's spoiled son. And it's like so played out, and I hate it.
If you could write one season of The Walking Dead, how would you do it, you think?
Great question, dude. I would separate them into probably 2 or 3 groups, which is why I liked the Terminus season so much, as they get separated and have to come back together. They'd come back together in the end, but they would have to like change shelter at least 2 to 3 times. Here's what I'd do. You write out a board. I have my whiteboards, right? I'd write on the whiteboards like all the problems I want them to deal with: shelter, food, medicine, bad humans. I'd create all of them, and then I'd do like, okay, episode 1 through 3 is shelter, but then they find it, and then mark it off. And then once they have shelter, now I go to food. Now episode 3 through 5 is food, because they have shelter now. They can focus on food, or they're out of food. So you alternate what problems they're dealing with, right? So they don't overlap. And you overlap some of them because you need more than just one problem. And then you give the season one large overarching problem, right? I would have just added a bunch of other stuff. I would have said like there's new types of zombies. I would have created, a zombie that can lead other zombies and like run and open doors and climb. I definitely would have done that. I would have made them actually look for a cure. Like, you just stop looking after season 1? Like, come on, dude. They had Eugene lie about it in season 4 or 5. But like, you can't give up on the cure. And I would have, there'd be so much action. It'd be nuts.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And I'd bring the characters to like their lowest, weakest point, where it's so satisfying when they crawl out of it,
Yeah.
What about you?
I would tune in to watch yours.
I'm like, I just covered everything.
That's a good question. I think it would be more of an establishing of outside of what it's been so far, in the sense of I would want to touch on what happened in the major cities, LA, New York, Austin, Dallas, stuff like that.
One of the spinoffs called Dead City is about Negan and Maggie in New York City.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because
they announced all this at Comic-Con in New York, by the way. Like, I'm not, obviously, if I know about it, it's public.
Well, it's not obvious. There's always a chance. Which actually reminds me, I want to go over those with you really quick. But I think I would touch on those and the reasons or how chaotic it was during that. Because if you get 10 million people in a city, it's going to be insane, and I don't know how many people are surviving that just out of sheer volume of walkers.
In season 1, they did a great job in Atlanta, right? They're like, we can't even go anywhere near Atlanta. There's too many people. It's basically death. But Rick like hides under the tank. He's rescued by Glenn.
Right out the gate.
That was so good. He gets on the horse.
The horse, yep. Right out of the gate, you see the swarm coming around. You're like, that's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And but then I like what you said too. It's you couldn't really do it in one season, I don't think. But finding an area like the cold. I think that is a fascinating idea of like, oh, they can't survive here, and maybe we can't either, but we're gonna try until it gets too cold. Global warming. It could push them out real quick. No, but I would do. That's good. That's good. I would want to increase up the stakes on everything, and also the loss. I would pull in as much. Because people, we're people. We have issues with, it's not just interpersonal stuff. There's health issues. Like, what did cancer just disappear all of a sudden? Did, major health issues because of lack of nutrition.
I was gonna say, how do they not cover nutrition? Like, obviously, they're not eating like healthy shit all the time.
Yeah, but at the same time, the body's very resilient, and I think people around the world eat very unhealthy as it is anyway. So they're still kicking.
Okay, then don't do nutrition.
No, but it's a completely valid.
It was your idea.
I know, no, you're not wrong. Well, there's a different access now versus if you're in a dystopian site. There's not going to be McDonald's or something you can't walk to. You know what I mean? Nobody's frying up burgers. Yeah, but I'm such a me like deep down I'm prepper, so I think maybe I'd also want to see someone do like a full on prepper eat. You know what I think would be interesting? Because I never thought about this, so I'm thinking about it on the fly. Right? There's that utopia that everyone is trying to get to. But having the characters sacrifice everything, sacrifice people, their safety, their security, their livelihood, everything to get to this utopia, knowing that it's the end all be all. And they get there and it's great for like a day. And then chaos breaks out and it's ground one. And it's like everything that they just gave up is just completely destroyed. And you realize the world you live in is not, there is never going to be a utopia again. And it's going to be ground floor, highest stakes possible to survive, and kind of go out from there.
Hell yeah.
I only have one season. I don't have 12, 11.
No, yeah. Fuck yeah.
It's just off the top of the head. I think that would be kind of interesting because of all the stuff you do on the journey. It's the journey to get there, right? And then the end of it is like, well, that was a stupid idea. We should have just stayed put.
No, for sure. And 100%. I love it. So, hell yeah, dude. What would your perfect season be? Comment below. I want to hear about it. Something I love about the genre is, there's so many different fun ways to play with it and create conflict and show some good stuff.
And because I wanted to ask you the spinoffs. What are each one of the spinoffs about?
Fear the Walking Dead is in its 8th season, and that one follows a family in LA during the outbreak and during as it happens. I watched the first season of that, and then I might watch more, but not. I don't like it as much. The Walking Dead World Beyond is about the female character from the junkyard, the one who takes Rick in the helicopter. There's 2 seasons of that, and it ended. I haven't seen it. Tales of the Walking Dead.
What's that about?
Debuted in August. That's the one with Olivia Munn and someone else. I really like Olivia Munn. I think she was awesome on Attack of the Show. And by the way, a new documentary comes out. I was actually at a screening of it in San Diego over Comic-Con weekend. It's Attack of the Doc is the name of it. And it's Chris Gore's new documentary about G4, about like Kevin and Olivia Munn and Chris Gore back in the day being on Attack of the Show and, doing live shows at Comic-Con and kind of the launch of gamer culture into the mainstream and like making nerds cool, which I appreciate because I am a nerd. But yeah, so keep an eye out for Attack of the Doc from Chris Gore and that crew. But yeah, that's an Olivia Munn spinoff. And then there's an untitled Daryl show, which I'm really fired up for. I love Daryl. We got Daryl right here with us.
I would definitely watch that.
And then Dead City, which is Negan and Maggie in Manhattan. And then another show about Michonne and Rick.
Really?
Yeah. And the last 3 mentioned all come out next year. So
they're coming out. They're slated to come out next year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So think about what we were just talking about then. It's interesting. They have the city take and they're all split up, right? With Negan and Maggie. So you have Manhattan, which is the biggest city in the world, basically.
Yep.
Dead City, and then Michonne and Rick. Where's theirs at? Where does it take place?
I'm assuming it's about how Michonne finds Rick because they haven't done that yet.
Yeah. So that and they have some great chemistry and
I love Michonne and Rick, dude.
They're such a great duo.
Yeah. because she's so badass with those katanas, man.
Yep.
Like she was one of my favorite characters for sure.
Yeah, and just they're both so unique, right? And Rick, he's this 6-shooting, gunslinging cowboy who's a leader and a badass and had major loss. And Michonne is such a badass in her own unique way too, like you said, with the katanas and
they're both parents. They
Exactly.
want to protect the kids and the people,
and they have a bit of empathy to them that they relate. And like I said, what I've seen, their chemistry is incredible. So that's a really cool story to follow. And then Negan and Maggie too. It's obviously they've turned into something much more than they were originally. And to me, that's my own personal. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's uncertain times, crazy times. Just because of Glenn's death is what I mean. I wouldn't be able to,
for sure.
I would wait for the right moment, and Negan's throat would not be the same.
By the way, if you think about it, when they probably had the idea that they wanted to do a Negan spinoff, which is why they couldn't kill him, presumably, unless you did like a prequel of like how Negan started the Saviors. But why would you be invested in that?
I think a lot of people are though, right? Because I've seen the reactions of people of Negan and
no, but they're not doing a prequel.
Oh, they're not doing a prequel.
No, yeah, it's like him and Maggie after the which, by the way, like, how do you announce spinoffs about your characters after the series? They don't die because the spinoffs exist.
Before the series is finished.
Yeah, but like whatever, the main characters survive. Like, what's new?
I mean, given the current state, I guess that's another way to get more eyeballs on it. To like, figuring out that they didn't die, right? And it's more press nowadays. Maybe you have to do things a little bit different than the good old days.
Yeah, take advantage of the fact that there's still millions of people watching the show.
Yeah,
to advertise the new ones for sure.
I'm always curious why people do what they do behind the scenes.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Some decisions are not the best for the audience. Some decisions are incredible, but also from a business standpoint, trying to get people's butts in the seats, or in this sense, on the couch. So
yeah. So comment below, what spinoff series are you most excited for? I think for me, it's got to be Daryl. I'd say Daryl. Yeah. And then Michonne and Rick, and then Negan and Maggie.
I think so too. Daryl is just, even him as a person, he's so cool. He just seems like such a cool dude.
He's a survivor, man. He's a lone wolf.
And I'm a big fan of motorcycles too, so I'm a fan that he's rocking that with the crossbow. I got a crossbow too. Maybe I want to be him. Maybe I want to be Daryl. And I didn't even know it.
Even though the crossbow is the most, like, the worst actual weapon for that scenario. Like, literally, you only get a couple bullets. You got to reload it. But whatever, it looks cool. I don't care.
They make a lot of different variations. I've seen one now that has 2 arrows that go in it. You can shoot them separately, so that's kind of cool. But you need one that would be like a fast reloading or even automatic reloading bolt. But there's
even a bow. Like, if you load, you can load it faster with your hands and like hold more arrows in a quiver. You know?
It's actually a little bit quieter too, I think. The bow is.
Yeah.
Obviously it's for quiet, and you can reuse the arrows. We've seen him use them as like,
and he uses the crossbow as a melee weapon, which is cool.
Yeah, that is cool too. But can't fault the guy, man. It makes him look badass.
Sometimes it's like, it's just, it's a show, deal with it. And I'm like, yeah, I like it. We got him right there. He's chilling.
It would be my weapon of choice for defense if I was doing a single, or if I was hunting, like for survival within the show, right? Or a singular initiation into my defense. Like, I'm going to get you quiet if I need one shot. Like, if there's somebody that has a bunch of food or tools or shelter that I need, I'm going to take that person out. Or the one lone walker that's trying to get in, and I'm going to take his butt out, so that I don't have to worry about that. But it wouldn't be my primary weapon by any choice.
You're right, though. It's very smart for hunting because you don't want a gunshot to attract more zombies. And then you also Yeah, it's perfect for like more powerful than a bow, but still quiet.
Yeah.
So I get that part for sure. But like against a horde attacking
A horde,
it's
no.
not a good one. Yeah.
Well, that's what I think is so funny too. He's so exposed in the sense of he's got a weapon that shoots one time essentially, and he has a motorcycle that even though they worked on it to make it quiet, right? It's a motorcycle.
Right. Yeah.
It's not. If it's not electric, it's not going to be that quiet.
It's gonna be pretty loud.
Yeah.
But
So
he's a badass. We forgive him.
all is forgiven. We love you, Daryl.
Well, all right.
All right.
Yeah. Like I was saying before, comment below on what you think of Negan. Was he a good or bad villain? What spinoff you're most excited for? And who are some of your favorite characters? Do you think Brock and I did a good job breaking it down? Are you excited to watch it if you haven't seen it? Did you binge it like me, or did you keep along? We want to hear all about it. But now we want to move on to a little comic of our own.
Yeah.
Quick KANE update.
Let's do it. Little KANE. Little dip our toes in the KANE sand.
KANE issue 2 is now available on our website, KaneComicUniverse.com, KANE ComicUniverse.com. We love issue 2. We have an amazing cover by Joe Bennett, colored by Denai Ribeiro. And you definitely get to learn more about Kane's past and a little bit into what he has coming forward.
Yeah. Is there anything we can talk about inside a little bit as far as the uniqueness of the issue itself?
Yeah. There's a lot of like very beautiful classical art by Patrick Blaine. If you like ancient Greece and the gods and stuff like that and like ancient heroes, I think you'll really, really love this one.
Yeah, I would say the exposition within the comic itself is incredible, and it is exciting. And as far as story progression goes, this is a key element, this issue itself, into the story, the entire first volume, but also the story as a whole and the backstory behind Kane as well. And it's beautifully done. In this volume, from what I've seen so far, and it's obviously not finished yet, I would say it's probably my favorite with the art and the Joe Bennett cover and
Hell yeah.
the style that it's done as well. I think it's so cool, especially if you're a fan of Greek mythology as well. But I have to say, the writing is also fantastic.
Yeah.
But then again, I might know the writer, so I might be,
And you know the hero.
Also, yeah, I might be biased in that. I might be biased all around. You know what? I'm biased. All right?
I just like it, okay?
I love the damn comic. I want you to love it too. It's amazing. We put a lot of time into it. Will has created an incredible story and has written his freaking fingertips to the bone. And as it's only getting better and better. So you better jump on the train while you can, people.
It does get better and better. I will say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really want people to like know what happens and see what happens for sure.
Yeah. I think this is something that, we're going to be working on for decades to come. And we're going to adopt this into so many different forms of storytelling. And to be a part of it at the beginning, I think it's so cool, not only as creators and us being on the forefront of it, but as someone who enjoys the comic book, and comic books in general. And then this one too, it's like, get it now, collect it, be a part of it when it's so early and watch as it goes. It's exciting. And,
maybe one day, Walking Dead started as a comic. Like maybe one day we'll be making a show about our show, based off a comic.
Well, mark it here. On October, whatever day this is in 2022, we are going to get Kane on the silver screen.
Oh my God.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I love it.
Yeah, it's going to happen. We're going to put all of our energy into it. We're going to keep it going. We're excited about it. And I'm excited to see what happens next. But the first issue, we're here. We've done it. Second issue, it's out. It's live. KaneComicUniverse.com. Go enjoy. Let us know what you think. Put it in the comics. Put your comments in the comic about the comic. Put your comments in the put your comic comments in the comment section. That's close enough. That's as close as I'm going to get. You know what to do. Just go do it, please.
That's pretty good right there.
Yeah, good times, man. As the sun's setting.
Very good times, man. And like, I appreciate that we got to discuss, The Walking Dead and the show. And like, obviously we have some grievances about it, but like, honestly, I really liked it. And sure, there's moments and things that I would have liked to change or whatever, but man, it's a unicorn. It never happens, man. To sustain 15 million viewers on average per episode for 3 years, like in its prime, it doesn't happen. Oh, Euphoria season 2, the show Brock was in, is 16 point something million viewers per episode. So think about that. That's crazy. More than The Walking Dead ever had in terms of a season average. So as we sit here and talk about the feats that Walking Dead broke and sustained, Euphoria just beat it, which is nuts. But how does that feel?
Feels good. Feels real good. Hopefully I come back for season 3.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think about that too, because you know how big The Walking Dead is. You know how big Game of Thrones, Euphoria, a lot of even stuff that I'm looking at that I've worked on, and I'm like, some stuff was small, some stuff was independent, and some stuff did really well. But realizing like, wait, it's surreal for me as an actor to look and I'm doing what I love, and to hear something like, how many millions of people saw me do what I love, even if it was a small scene. And the Euphoria one, I did love it, I have to say. It was a little gory, a little crazy, a little promiscuous. It was fun. It was a good time. But
hell yeah, man.
But it's crazy to think that, because as we're sitting here, just us two, just talking and talking about the thing that we love, which is TV and film and comic books and storytelling, to know that somewhere in the world, there's a bunch of people watching our work one way or another, and even here on YouTube, here in all of these platforms that the podcast is at right now, and iHeart as well. It's just cool that to be able to reach so many people.
Yeah, man, and I'm really proud of. We just hit the 5,000 plus subscriber mark, so thank you to everyone watching us on YouTube. That's a really big deal, and I'm really proud of that, and grateful for every one of you guys out there watching us on YouTube. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're just going to continue to make content and talk about things we love with people we love and enjoy, and interesting topics, interesting characters, people. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting, and we're grateful for all of you. So thank you for tuning in. And if you haven't yet, please smash that button, as they say, and subscribe and like, and comment your comic comments in the comment section. Thank you, guys.
Elon's buying Twitter, and shit's going down.
That's it. I start using Twitter the day Elon buys it.
Oh, yeah. I'm never going to use it, but
I'll use it. Why not? See you when I see you.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of The Walking Dead on Studio 22. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video.
And subscribe and hit the bell for a whole lot more to come.
Thanks for tuning in to Studio 22.